In this video I'm going to talk a bit more detail about the graphs in SPSS and how to format them so that when you cut and paste them into Word they look how you want. To start with, I thought I'll just give you an example of what the two graphs can look like side by side and why it is that I often just use Excel, especially when I'm trying to put stuff into documents. If you look at the Excel graph, aesthetically I guess it's a bit prettier to start with, although we can change all of these options, so we'll. What is useful is that when you scale an Excel graph in Word, because the two programs link up really well, it will automatically reformat. So you'll see that as I make that graph smaller and smaller, it's actually changing all the formatting of the titles here, and you can still read bits and pieces. So I'm not sure that that's an entirely useful graph at that size, but it is readable. I'll make it a bit bigger, or perhaps like that. So you can see that Excel does quite a nice job. When you cut and paste an SPSS graph into Word, the default option will be that it's just a picture. Now this means that it's nice and small in terms of a file size, but it's not active anymore. It's not redrawing whenever you change the size. So if I put in a graph of this size and it looks fine and I can read all the words, and then decide actually I need to have this graph side by side with a different one, you can see that when I scale it, all of a sudden I can't read the words anymore. I can still see the lines and I can still see the count, but it's really not a very good graph because I can't read off all these details. So there's a few things that we can change in SPSS to make it work better when we cut and paste into Word, and it's important to know how we want the graph to look and export it at the right size. So if I want this to be a long graph, I need to make sure that I format it that way so that it doesn't look all stretched. With the Excel, if I do that, you'll see that it will just space everything out a bit more and it won't change the formatting. So in SPSS, if you want to change anything in the graph, all you need to do is double click on the graph, and that brings up the editor. So the first thing that I can see here is the chart size. Now for this type of graph, I might actually prefer it to be a fairly long short graph, and so I don't want to keep it at the same aspect ratio. Maybe I want to make the height just a little bit shorter. I might put that at 300, and then perhaps the width I want to be nearly double, so maybe 800. Let's apply that. So this is closer to what I was aiming for, and I could cut and paste that in and check it's the right size. Now the other thing I might want to do is to have all this font a little bit bigger. So if I click on one of them, you can see that all of them get highlighted in yellow. It says the preferred size is 8. Now 8 points is very small. Let's try 12. Apply. That's better, I think. So you could change the style of that, but I'll just leave that as is for now. So we've got the font a bit bigger. Now I really don't like the colours, so I'm going to click on that background, and you can see that the background is now highlighted in yellow. The fill, I'm just going to put that as white. I think that's fine. Now the bars, possibly the ugliest colour I've ever seen, so let's change that to, let's just change it to blue. So that's looking better already. Close. I'm just going to close that off. So now if I cut and paste this into Word, so let's just do a copy and paste. You can see that's much better already. We could do a bit more fiddling around with this. We could get some lines drawn in like we did with Excel. And it's sort of up to you how much time you want to spend on these.